Oh my god, hi. Welcome to, I need to kill this part of myself real quick because it ain't all that. And I've made a video, like I think talked about this before. But hi, inner critic. Hi, I'm a Virgo. I'm a Virgo, Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Venus in first house. We are well acquainted with what it is to be a critical individual here at this establishment. And oh my god, am I battling with her at the moment? It's like so many facets, and like I presently, here now, in this second, I feel like I'm coming to a conclusive place where I can understand everything. But I also have just like seen the inner critic pop up in ways that were a little bit, no, they weren't a little bit, they were shameful. But my shadow kind of just justified them. Like it's working ways in which I've seen my inner critic pop out again that I wasn't able to label them as like inner critic, hey, I'm not proud of this, we need to change this, until I realized, and I was like, oh, okay, we need to change that. And I want to share it and I want to go through it because that's how we all learn and grow. So it starts with like Friday. I went to this breathwork thing and it was great. And I set an intention for like peace because, well, I said like my intention wholly was that there are parts of myself right now that need to, like for the past kind of month, I've been needing to just shed. I've been feeling the need of like, oh, a lot of things in my life just need to die and like go and like tower, fall, phoenix, whatever you call it, like whatever that process is for you. I've been recognizing, like it took me a little bit to like recognize just how deep it probably needed to go. And then I was like, oh, okay, it needs to happen, and it needs to happen in a big way, and I need to do that. And it's like, it led me to be aware, but like pretty rigid with like, I know I need to let things go, so I'll let go of this and I'll do this. And there's a part of that process that feels like it requires more openness and more allowing of just the chaos and just like not even trusting, because I do trust the process. Like I do trust that this is right and that needs to happen, but there's fear that is holding me back from the whole thing, understandably. Like when would it not? Even then I'm kind of like, was that be like justifying myself, or was I just being critical of myself? Anyway, I went through this breathwork process and immediately started criticizing myself because like when you set an intention, you set to like clear everything that's blocking it, you are very quickly faced with your blocks. And my blocks were like my inner critic that I didn't fully recognize would be a block. Like I've had a lot of maladaptive behaviors come up. I've had a lot of different coping strategies. I've had a lot of my shadow come up in different ways, and it's the one that's closest to home that always surprises you, you know? It's your best friend. It's usually the one that stabs you in the back, you know? No, it's not. Sorry. I mean, well, I can't say that that's not true. But I don't know why I said that just then. You know, it's just like, I guess it's the tried and true. Like that's one of my core woundings that I've had since I was like, that is if anything, as a Virgo, like the core wounding is inner critic. And I think that's for anyone that's even not a Virgo, you know? It's one of the big demons. But I didn't see her. I didn't see her. And then when I saw her, I was like, oh. And now that I've been seeing her. But it's been tricky because she's been justified in a lot of ways. And so I've been walking that line of like, where does the critic justify and then where does the critic start being, like, when does the critic, because there's a job, there is a role. There is a role of the thing inside of you that tells right from wrong and that gives you your limits and that says, hey, I don't think that's a good judgment call. Don't make that. There is a role to that inner voice inside of you, and it's not as if you shouldn't have one, like you shouldn't have one entirely. I think when you have a good relationship with criticism or judgment or whatever, like there's so many words for it, or like being prudent or whatever. When you have and when you understand the value and the use of that, you can have that in your life in a healthy capacity. But mine is unbalanced and not healthy at the moment. I think I've spoken about this before, but I have no idea what I said in that video. So I could be repeating the hell out of myself. I don't care. Yeah, I've been walking the line of, okay, how much breath do I give you? How much are you allowed to be a part of my reflection and go, ooh? And then how much do I allow you to stay in my present? And how much do I allow you to influence how I respond to things? And how much do I actually let you become me? And I thought I knew how far she was extending. And then I'll be really fucking real with you. I saw myself become really nasty and really belittling and really nasty, really belittling, really. I found myself in an interesting predicament yesterday, and it tied up into my self-worth, it brought in my self-criticism, it brought up feeling seen and like relationships with people and connections, it brought up like dismissive and anxious attachments, it hit kind of just like every single thing inside of me. That is just insecure. And I think my inner critic my inner critic just took charge of that train and was like, I know how to handle this. I'm just going to become a bitch to make myself feel okay and to make myself navigate this feeling like I'm the better person, the higher person, the one that gets to judge, the one that gets to say that this is what that is and this is what this is and this is your worth and this is my worth, and the one that gets to paint the picture, name it, and then be done with it and move on. And I caught myself. I was going to say pretty quickly, but like, depends on what you call pretty quick. Within the day, but not after I'd already like been in this thing and in this person and in this state for like hours. And like, luckily it's not like, it wasn't towards the person that I was being judgmental and critical of outside of myself. So they didn't hear or cop or see any of it, thankfully. My best friend did though. And that's kind of like why the mirror was there, was because like I saw myself sending her videos and I was like, wait, these videos are bitchy. I don't like who I'm becoming. Because it's like, I don't really love going into detail about like the things that cause these like upstirs, but essentially there was a moment of authenticity for me that like I put to someone, and then their response to that felt, what it triggered in me was feeling like infantilized almost. And I Like I didn't feel seen in my depth. And I think that's valid. That in and of itself, that's okay. It's okay that I felt that way because of what somebody said to me or because of how somebody received what I said. What isn't okay then is to, develop this kind of like this mirrored response of I don't feel my value is seen, so therefore I don't see your value, and therefore I belittle your value, and therefore your value becomes a joke to me because I feel so like I know that they weren't making a joke of me, but yeah, like it did just feel kind of like, really? So it was confusing. And yeah, again, walking that fine line between my inner critic, my little Virgo Venus, my little Virgo Moon. I am allowed to notice when I feel like my worth or my value or what I bring to connection isn't mirrored back to me. I'm allowed to notice that. I'm allowed to go, okay, you aren't seeing me the way that I'm seeing me. And sometimes that can happen, and sometimes it can be like, oh no, you're seeing me in a completely different way that I would ever see myself. And that brings a whole new dimension to myself. And I'm so grateful for your sight. But I suppose in this way, it was like, oh, you're not seeing me in the way that I'm seeing me. And it does bring a whole new dimension to myself, but it feels shallow and it doesn't feel enough. It doesn't feel like it's enough for what I put out. And it feels lacking in response because it feels like I offered you this. I mean, it wasn't like the ocean, but it was like, it feels like I offered something and then this person just skimmed the surface of what it could mean and like what they took away from that. And I was kind of like, what the fuck? Like I was, what? I was a bit dumbfounded. And then there was like an ensuing conversation of like, I think I handled it well. Because I didn't let my inner critic come out. I didn't be like, why the fuck did you say that? Like I wasn't like, I tried to handle it in a way that wasn't completely people pleasy and in a way that was still like in the way that I still think I maintained my integrity and didn't fully give in to people pleasing, which is also why I feel uncomfortable. Like there's so many layers of discomfort around this interaction that I'm trying to navigate. And I think that's in and of itself okay for me to be a bit confused by the whole thing. But I do kind of just want to highlight something that the thing that I was talking about when I saw myself become nasty, that I see in myself and that I see in like a lot of situations, honestly. And if I'm gonna be real, a lot of the times it is when women have men receive them and it's not in any kind of deep way. And so we start to belittle them and go like, oh, they're stupid. And then there's just this really high and mighty and hypercritical and like nasty, like perfectionist feminine that comes from a wounded place, but then inflicts wounding, whether or not you inflict it to the person directly or if you just inflict it on yourself by becoming something that is hurtful to the world. And that sounds heavy, but it's also how I feel. I don't want to feel embodied when I'm being nasty because I don't feel embodied. I feel wounded and I feel defensive and I feel egotistical. And if that is then what my light is distorted into, and if that's the hill that I want to die on because of my own ego reaction, I become concerned. And I guess I see that in myself, and I see that in others, and I guess I just want to speak about that and call it out and like work some way over it. Because I know how easy it feels. I know how fucking easy it feels to feel like a person that has depth and has complexity, and then for it not to be met, you think, what do you mean? Like, how can you not see what I see? Therefore, what I see must be better. And it wasn't lost on me where this person was coming from. But I had to push myself to I had to push against my ego. And I think it's important to do that. I think it's important, even if every justification under the sun can tell you that either you're right or what you're saying is like more aligned to like how you feel or how you believe or whatever. I think it's our duty as people to how do I say this? Like recognize the value of the whole and recognize the value of the other, and to keep that off, to keep it off a comparison, if you know what I mean. This could be all getting a bit too elusive, because I'm kind of losing my thoughts a little bit. But what I'm saying is, like, I saw immediately where that person was coming from, and I could see, astrology helped me as well, because I know their placements, and so I'm like, I see where you're coming from, and then the problem herein lies that I don't feel seen in what you value. That's the issue. And that's my issue. That's not their issue. And I needed to start to like take away the webs of like any of this being this person's problem, any of this being a flaw or a fault of that person, because frankly, it's not. Like, frankly, they're not flawed. They're just not. And it's not my job, or at least it's not my job to assign that to them. It's not, who am I to say that this person is anything? Point blank, period. But that's something I needed to like slap myself in the head with a little bit, was no matter how I feel and no matter how I judge this person, it is not on me to say that that is what it is. It is on me to claim how I feel, and it is for me to claim what I am and how I am feeling and what I am becoming because of this. So I felt like my value wasn't seen. It's not my job, it's not my role, it's not my place to try and change this person or to try and have this person see my worth in the way that I think I deserve to be seen. And it's also none of my place to criticize this person for how they are and how they see. Because there are, now that I like, when I kind of went through it, I get it. Like, I get it in a way that's not just, I get where you're coming from. I'm like, no, I see it. I see what you're seeing. And I think it is sweet. Like, I can see the sweetness, and I can see the value, and I can see how it is endearing, and I can see what you see. And I think it's beautiful that they see things that way. But I've gotten to that mediation point where I think where my people pleaser comes in or where my people pleasing boundaries had to come in, where I started to feel uncomfortable in like preceding conversation, where I tried to hold firm but not completely reject this person or criticize this person, and trying to hold the space of, I see what you're saying, I can receive that. And then trying to just be honest. Like, I think I was honest. I was like, oh, I'm just flustered. I'm really flustered receiving that. So I don't know how to respond completely. I think me 2 years ago would have just been like, oh, thanks. And it's like, that's not how you feel. But like after like the couple interactions, like after the couple words, I was left scared. I was left feeling like, oh no, did I not do that right? Did I not, back into the criticism? Like, was I not perfectly unconditionally receptive? Was I not, is this person then going to take that badly? Is this person going to da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da? Like, I started getting critical of myself for not being enough. when like it's just this whole perpetual cycle of not being enough, not feeling enough, and projecting that outside of me and also inside of me, and getting myself into a mess and getting myself into a tizzy, and then as a defense mechanism of feeling so vulnerable and feeling so like lit up, going into this place of like invalidation and subjugation and belittling of the other person, that my subconscious is going, this is the thing that's making you feel gross, so just like belittle it, demean it, and then you're better. You're better than, you're above it. If you can find the flaws in it, then you're fine. And it is such a destructive mechanism, and it is such a destructive place for my identity and my ego to go. And I think a lot of us go there. And I don't want to go there anymore. And I'm open to the fact that I'm probably still going to. And I'm not saying that I'm going to encourage it, but I'm just giving myself that leeway of not being perfect, that like in months or in a year's time, if I find myself here again, it's okay, Annabelle, I forgive you. Which is kind of where my psyche moves into with this, is that like, okay, what do you do once you found all of this? What do you do once you confront this like situation? Like, what do you do once you confront this part of yourself? What do you do once you confront somebody that isn't, like, what do you do in the situation where somebody isn't seeing you? What do you do to get to the ultimate end goal of peace, to get to the ultimate end goal of detachment, of peace, of acceptance, of knowing, like, what channel gets me there? And it's forgiveness. It's forgiveness of the miscommunication. It's forgiveness of myself for misunderstanding. It's forgiveness for my ego for being triggered. It's forgiveness of my woundings, innate like drive towards protection. Like, it's forgiving myself ultimately for being the way that I am, that is causing the problem. And I think I went like a step not far enough initially by being like, all right, like I forgive him for like not getting it. And that didn't feel like enough, because it's like, who am I to place forgiveness on this person that doesn't, like, who says it's needed there? Why should they have to be forgiven when it's me that's actually the thing that I am afraid of and repulsed by? Yeah. It's been an interesting dance. And at the end of it, I'm like finding myself like very grateful. I'm not super happy or like super stoked about seeing myself in a particular way. Like, it humbles you when you see how you are and how quickly it's justified. And it can be really deflating to see how cynical parts of me are. And it can sometimes challenge the very essence of what I think my identity is as a person, and how I often hear myself reflected in the people around me that love me, that like the people that give me compliments sometimes, like these moments, sometimes I start to flip into like this existential dread. Like, I've been doing that a lot lately, is that like, and that's what I mean by this like death, this unfurling, this like dying of a lot of things, is that there's all these mirrors coming up inside of me at the moment where I'm seeing some of the biggest darknesses in myself. And I've gone through like a little bit of a dark period the past month. And I'm having this internal experience, and I'm also being met with so much love outside of me with the people around me. And there's also this other like existential spiral of like my light, the light that you see is not like, it's not it. Like there's like, I don't know, there's like, maybe this is a different kind of video, but there's this feeling in me right now, like as I'm going through this, is that like even with this person, it's like, I feel like I need to be coming to this person and being like, don't call me cute, because as you've just done that, I've gone through this entire disgusting process. And like, that isn't cute. Like, now not only am it's like, don't call me cute, but like, because I'm not, like, I'm ugly. And there's just like this, I think that's a whole other thing. Like if I'm real, if I'm like gonna cut off about like, I think I'm just gonna like end that there. That's just like a whole other thing that I don't really feel like I have a tangible walkthrough for yet. But yeah, it's a Sagittarius new moon, and I that just gets everyone talking and sharing and thinking and philosophizing and considering things deeply. And I think that is an invitation for like mirrors and like macrocosm, microcosm mirrors to kind of come in. And yeah, I think I just want to draw it back to, I'm grateful to see this. I'm grateful for forgiveness. I'm grateful for being able to come into contact with the part of me that understands that I am deserving of forgiveness for being that way, and that and also recognizing that the only way that, like, sometimes you can see these parts of yourself and they can be justified, or they can be felt, or like they can have all of this like elusive backing. Like your feminine can really back itself in some pretty impractical ways, because it's not supposed to be practical, like, or illogical ways. And things can feel justified, and things can feel rooted into who you are, and things can feel unchangeable, and things can feel like they need to be this way in order for you to make sense as a human being. But I'm grateful that I've been able to meet a part of myself that can gently show myself that that doesn't have to be the case, that like I don't have to hold on to these parts of myself, and that the only way that I can move through these parts of myself, or those pains within myself, is by forgiving them for being there in the first place. And I think then that just bleeds out into me feeling like a safer person for myself and those in my life. Because that's ultimately the goal, I believe at least, is what I was saying before about like your light, and like who you are, and what you are responsible for what you put out in the world, and you are responsible for what you embody. And sometimes getting into ego reactions can make you completely unaware of that responsibility. But it is like important, because at every waking moment you are the embodiment of your light, and you are shining that out into the world, whether it's being received by somebody directly or not. Like, you are adding into this reality by being what you are, and the composition of what you release. And I got really caught up in an ego reaction that I was in for hours, and then that was just hours of me channeling nastiness into the world and bringing it into existence and justifying it with my feelings and with my criticisms and with everything. And it's like, that's confronting, to see yourself become that and be that, and knowing that it's in you, and knowing that it has the potential to come out again, and it probably will. And also then therefore knowing that it's okay, because that's a part of being a person, it's part of being a human. And even though it's a part of our responsibility. Responsibility is also something that you learn and you make mistakes with and you falter on. And it is something that like fundamentally changes you as a person when you understand it and start working with it. But we're all just going to go through cycles of like consciousness and unconsciousness and awareness and unawareness, and that's just going to be what happens for the rest of my life anyway, no matter what. So as much as I want to take responsibility and like incite myself towards change, that's not going to come from seeing something, noticing something, criticizing myself for being some way, and then trying to drag myself through the mud to like change. I need to drag myself into forgiveness and acceptance and understanding, and then change as a person. And that feels meaningful. And that feels hopeful. So, yay. Now I'm kind of like, I'm done. I've lost my juice now. I've said everything I want to say. I don't always wrap up things very tightly, but New Moon in Sagittarius. Maybe this will give you something to think about. Maybe you see like a similar darkness inside of you. Maybe you see a similar darkness inside of another person. If so, unfortunately, you're probably just gonna have to leave it. Like, unfortunately, it's like none of our places to like be like, you're this, stop it. Like, I mean, sometimes, but you know, by and large, kind of what I was saying about this person is that like, it's not really my place to tell them that what I see of them is the real thing that they then need to live by and change by and move by. Because what's that classic saying? Our perception is our reality. And our perception is our responsibility to like change and morph and shift and grow and yeah, expand. Hopefully that makes sense. It's nice to like think through it in a way that's like in a way that like videos or like recording does. That's like another thing of another like time is that like, you know, you can talk to friends, but then also it's like, do I really want to subject my friend to just sitting in front of me and listening to me for 20 minutes and half an hour? No, not really. Like, you know, like, to be fair, I think friends do that to each other all the time. I think I sit and listen to my friends for hours and they sit and listen to me for hours, but that's often about like, wait, maybe it is like the same thing. No, it feels a bit different. Again, another thing to dissect for another day because it doesn't feel nearly as personal. Anyway, have a good new moon, have a good life, have a good day, have a good week, have a good night, whatever else.